It's our honor and distinct privilege to have as our commencement speaker the very distinguished Dr. Larry P. Arnn. Dr. Arnn became the 12th president of Hillsdale College in 2000. He received his BA from Arkansas State University and his MA and PhD in government at the Claremont Graduate School. He studied as well at the London School of Economics and at Worcester College, Oxford University, where he served as director of research for the late Sir Martin Gilbert, the official biographer of Winston Churchill. Dr. Arnn is the author of Liberty and Learning, The Evolution of American Education, The Founder's Key, The Divine and Natural Connection Between the Declaration and the Constitution, and What We Risk by Losing It, and Churchill's Trial, Winston Churchill and the Salvation of Free Government. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Larry P. Arnn.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Emily and Jessica, on your standing and on those beautiful remarks, and to all of you seniors. Congratulate you on the board. I'm proud to be here. Turns out the great Mr. Theory here, whose son is coming to Hillsdale College next year, I was thinking, I own that man now. I can do anything I want to with him. As I do surely own that boy, but then it occurred to me I'd forgotten about the exchange that's happening, because our youngest son, Tony, is going to teach Latin working for Mr. Theory next year. So we have exchanged hostages. I'm an old hand at commencement, and so I know it's important to recognize the most important people in the room who turn out to be the faculty members. How many of them are here? Would you stand up for a second so we could see you? And thank you. Thank you for your work. I'm going to commiserate with you in just a minute. And the parents of students in the school, would you stand up just a minute? Yeah. I'm going to commiserate with you too. And I know that there are a group of friends of the college who've come here tonight, and I want to thank you for being here and tell you that amidst all the trouble in the world, the college is well, and we're going to go ahead and have college again next year for the 174th time. I'm going to introduce Steve Barney to you and tell you just a little bit about how this works, all this charter school stuff, and then I'm going to say a few words to the most important people this night, the seniors, who, by the way, I spoke with for a few minutes, and they're polite, smart, cheeky, just what you'd want. Steve Barney is a friend of mine and a trustee of the college, and some years ago he became the second person to thump me on the chest and tell me that you, Larry, have to do something about K through 12 education. And Steve is a blubber baby. He works up tears about the fate and plight of the young. And I allowed that I had thought of something, and I told it to this other person who was soon killed in a plane crash, and Steve said he was going to make that happen. And the something is simple enough. Any good human enterprise is centered around the actual factual thing it's supposed to accomplish. In the case of a school, the purpose is education. Education comes from a Latin word, these scholars will tell you, that means to lead forth. Forth is a direction, also it's a value term. And so we forget that today. You just read any bureaucrat, any politician, Republican or Democrat, and you won't find 1 in 100 who can tell you what education is. I'm giving a big talk in Washington next week because somebody gave me a prize. And there's going to be a lot of important people there, so I'm going to announce the obvious fact that everyone knows and nobody says, which is the people in the Department of Education wouldn't know an education if it bit them on the butt. So we have 8 charter schools now, and 4 more opening in August. I think that's the right number. By the way, I did have something to do with conceiving this mess, and the reason it isn't a mess is because of Phil, whom I thank so very much for running all this and making it work. He does the work, and I'm just here to take a credit, which is an excellent position for me to be in. We don't take any money from these schools because we don't take any money from the government. We can't, really. We spend so much time trying not to be run by the federal government that we don't have any time left over trying not to be run by the government of New Mexico, which would be about as miserable as being run by the federal government. So what we do for these schools, we raise the money to do with Steve's very great help and a lot of people's help. Hundreds of people now have given to help us do this. We've spent some millions of dollars on it. About 1/3 of our faculty, Hillsdale, Mr. Theory is about to find out, is a very challenging college. It's hell. I urge you not to come. And one of the reasons it's hell is because there's a faculty member for every 9 students. And they're very smart and they love to teach. And they have just fallen in love with this project. And so they spend part of their time, and we pay them for it, training teachers and helping figure out how to run charter schools. And we give them advice and we learn from them. And so we become also a clearinghouse for advice. And I want you all to know that this is a privilege for us to do. It's an inspiring thing to do. And it owes so much to Steve Barney, and you should thank him. Now for you seniors, I think it's time to ask the question, why a classical education? And I want you to know that my expertise is in torturing the young. And it's easy after you come to understand them. By the way, if you do come to understand them, you will love them. These are super, by the way. And as I like to say, but if you just ask them point blank what any fundamental thing means, they're young, they can't tell you. It's hard, right? I mean, how many people in this room could stand up right now and give a good definition of the laws of nature and of nature's God? You've heard the expression, right? It's in the Declaration of Independence. I think Bill Clinton, it was, once identified that as coming from the Gettysburg Address. But it actually isn't easy to say what those laws are, or how would you would know what they are. And education is another such term, and classical is such a term. By the way, we apply the classical term in education to a period of history in Greece and Rome that doesn't cover the entire history of those 2 places. Why are they classical? Why is classical good? The leading experts, by the way, in this room on why not to do classical education are those people sitting right there, and their teachers and their parents, because it's terribly troublesome to do. I mean, first of all, homework, out the bazoo. And I don't know what's wrong with you, you're warped in some way or another, because what kids do today, did you know in the Republic of France, for 2 years now, homework has been outlawed. On the argument that some kids, when they go home, don't have people to help them with their homework, and so it's unequal for parents to help students learn, right? But that's very widespread in America today, which means that these kids have missed parties and fun and dances and TV and movies that all of their peers have enjoyed. What is wrong with you people? And young is the very time when you can best enjoy those things. What were you thinking? And then Latin. Why Latin? God help us. I mean, it's a dead language. Even if, by the way, there's getting to be almost no reason to learn any other language, because soon, it's already working, it's just not widespread yet, Skype is going to provide automatic translation in real time between any two people in the world, whether they speak the same language or not. So why would you learn another language? Indeed, by the way, you could have a conversation with somebody, I imagine soon, in Latin when neither of you knew Latin. Think of that. Does that make sense? No. But think of this, by the way. It won't be long till we'll be resurrecting Cicero, and we won't need to know his language to talk with him. So why learn? It's hard to learn Latin. For the parents, it's hard, because your kids are under stress, more than other kids. Isn't that right? Don't they turn into vampires at the end of the term? They look like these dark circles under their eyes. You should come to Hillsdale College in September and October, Hillsdale, and also in January and February. Hillsdale College is like Disneyland. Everybody is so happy. But then in December and in April, it's like a zombie movie. Because they're worn out. It's hard, and it's hard on the faculty, isn't it? Because, you know, it's a distortion, but the great idea today about education is that students should spend their time all day long doing whatever happens to interest them. And see, you know what it's a distortion of? I'm going to talk about this for a second later. It's a distortion of this fact. Whatever these people here know. How many are there? 9 of them? However many of these 9 know, whatever they know, they don't know it because their teachers knew it. I've learned this myself teaching. There are 3 things that I know as much about as any living person. I fancy that they're important things, and I've spent 40 years learning them. And I started teaching regularly 15 years ago, and I discovered I can't teach it to the students unless they work and seek it hard. And all I can really do is bore them, especially if I make the mistake of trying to tell them too easily and quickly. You always ask them first. And then when they give you the answer, especially if it's right, it's important to disagree with them. You know, because they're young, right? And now they go, oh my God, right? And then they're really thinking now, see? And all you can do, if you don't do that, is just give them the conclusions you reached after all that sweat and toil. That's a truth. And if you think about that truth for a minute, implicit in that truth is the very nature of human freedom. Every achievement is because some free human soul gives itself to that achievement and sacrifices for that achievement. And today, by the way, we take that deep and beautiful truth and we turn it into the doctrine that they should be permitted to do whatever they want. I took our eldest child, all of our children, but our eldest child to other colleges for interviews because some of them didn't want to come to the college where I work. The eldest child, by the way, runs one of these charter schools in Austin, Texas. Today's their last day, and she's sad. She's awesome, by the way, and way better looking than Mr. Theory. I'm sitting in a admissions counselor's office at a very distinguished college where I got some of my education. And I said, what are you going to teach my daughter? And the lady replied, whatever she wants to learn. And I said, she would be coming here to get an education. And the lady said, yes, indeed. And I said, implying that she does not have one. And the lady grew uncertain. And I said, but she's going to pick anyway. Huh? So what do teachers do? They help. And they know to start. It passes down. Those are reasons not to do it. What reason is there to do it? I have just 2 points. First of all, classical is not the fundamental word. That's an adjective. The fundamental word is a noun. The word is class. What is it to be in a class? Well, we have one here, the senior class. How'd they get in it? Because, they took a bunch of exams, and they worked, and they turned into vampires at the end of the term. And there were others who started with them, and they're not sitting here now because they didn't get through all that. Sometimes not their fault, sometimes it was, right? These are receiving a certificate tonight that says that they have the qualities of this class, or to use a synonym for the word qualities, they have the virtues of this class. They are members of the class because they have the qualities that give the class its being. You could say these kids are clever, by the way, and one of them flirts with nihilism down there on the end. He's only flirting, by the way. He told me later it was just a joke. I think his mother teaches in the school. Is that true? No. Maybe she should. But these are clever kids, and like young kids today, they're good at cynicism. And so they could be thinking, what about the class pirate? What about the class thief? What about the class murderer? What if I want to be a member of that class? Will I have the qualities of that class? Are those virtues that those have? And there's a pitfall there. Because lots of us today, when we think that anything has any meaning whatsoever, what we think of is a great contest in the universe between a mighty force of good and a mighty force of evil. And they're equal, and they're quarreling, and you have to decide, in Star Wars, right? The dark side of the force versus the other side of the force. But you know why that argument won't work? It won't work because, by the way, if they really were equal, how would you know which one to call good and which one to call evil? How would you know which one to call light and which one to call dark? There has to be something beyond them two to distinguish them, some standard outside and above them, right? And see, if you take someone's life or someone's property or someone's honor unjustly, that is to say, unduly and without their deserving it, do you know what the word is for that? That means unjust, unjust, which, by the way, is only a term that has meaning if you know what justice is. Evil is, in fact, only good spoiled. And you can't understand evil without understanding the good that is being ruined. And we all know that all the time. And so, what class do these classical thinkers that we learn about and emulate fit into? What did they do that made them classical? They didn't call themselves that, by the way. What they were to themselves was revolutionary. I'll tell you what they did. Contained in that explanation is my final point. A man named Socrates, the father of Western thought, philosophy. Cicero says of him that he called philosophy down from the heavens and made it inquire into the things of men. Before Socrates, what philosophers did, Heraclitus, Thales, Parmenides, what they did was they were trying to find out the component portions of the universe. The atoms and the void, earth, fire, wind, and air. Long treatises about that. What makes up everything? In Socrates, there are dialogues, some of the most famous and enduring things written in all of human history, that have the names of some of those people that I just named. And what Socrates did was he got into conversation with them, and he confronted them with the question that faced those young people right now. He said, and so you think that the life of wondering about that is the right kind of life. And you know, you only get one, and you'll be dead before you know it. And the second that's just passed, you can never get it back. Their lives seem long to them now, but we know that their lives are fleeting, and they know that their youth is fleeting. Did you catch the note of sadness in the salutatorian's remarks? And the promise that she would keep her friend till the day she dies? She already knows about her longevity, you see. And so this life that we have to live, there's just one. And the question is, how should we live it? What is the right way for a human being to live? And Socrates put the point like that. And he didn't say, what is the right way for an Athenian to live? Or a Persian, or a Spartan, or in this time, in this place, or in some future time, or some future place. He said, I would like to know what is right for the class human. It is a very radical question. It goes along exactly, by the way. Do you know what Western civilization is? Do you know what we mean by that expression? Because, by the way, I personally have a treasured and offensive letter from the Michigan Department of Education, another place, by the way, where you can surely find none. And they said that there was a problem with our curriculum in education because we say that we study Western civilization, whereas global and multicultural perspectives are to permeate the curriculum. And so I traipsed up to Lansing, Michigan. I've been there twice in my life and hope never a third. And I said, you know, I just thought I'd mention to you that Western civilization is the confluence of two strains of thinking. And one of them comes from Jerusalem, where the idea was born that there was one God for every man. Not this city, not this race, not these people. Every human being, one God, the being of perfection, in whose image all of us are made. It's revolutionary. It changes the religions of the ancient world decisively, right? But the same thing, by the way, that happened in faith in Jerusalem happened in thought in Athens. Because Socrates' question was, what is the good, and what is the true, and what is the beautiful? Because we need to know those things so that we can live well. And the tension, by the way, because see, I didn't come here to proselytize anybody for religion. I want you to understand the grandness of the assertion. It's awesome. And the tension is, knowing by faith and knowing by reason are different ways of knowing. And they may come out to the same place, but that's an argument. And you see those two universals coming from those two different cities. They give definition to the West, and they're both universal, not parochial, the opposite of that. Now, I told that to those people in Lansing, and they looked puzzled. What does this mean for you? The most important thing, in my opinion, for young people to know is that things are real. You can trust your senses. They've all you got. Aristotle writes, there's nothing in the soul that does not get in there except by way of the senses. And as Mathan and I were arguing this evening, if you discard the evidence of your senses, you're left with nothing, which means that literally you disappear. And why would you want to do that foolish thing anyway? It means that you would doubt a mother's love. Do you know the family is collapsing all over the world? These families represented here that have produced that. We're going to be manufacturing children soon enough because the technology exists. And then we can design them the way we want. Predicted in 1931 by both Winston Churchill and Aldous Huxley. But if you think that things are real, then questions become urgent and you get to find out how ambitious you are. Because you may be ambitious in some low way. Ambitious to succeed, ambitious to be comfortable, ambitious to have money, ambitious to be influential or powerful. But I want to tell you an argument, this is my last point, that you will find in one of the two greatest of the classical works, in my opinion. You know, in Plato's Republic, Plato is writing a dialogue about his teacher, Socrates, and one of the most important characters in the Republic, the greatest of the dialogues, is Glaucon, who is Plato's brother. And they meet in the beginning. And they talk first with an old man named Cephalus, and that goes a certain way. And then the first real argument comes, very important argument, because there's a man named Thrasymachus. And Thrasymachus is a sophist. Many of the Platonic dialogues have the names of sophists in the title. And Thrasymachus is a famous sophist. And here's what sophists do. They teach young, ambitious people how to be powerful in exchange for money. Because, you know, the decline of Greece and the decline of Rome was connected to the phenomenon that people just wanted strength, comfort, pleasure, sway, money. Look about the world today, right? And so Thrasymachus and Socrates are competitors for the souls of the young and influential, like these. Because think what they've done, see? It's unusual. Not every kid in this day and age, when there are so many easy options. By the way, Jessica enjoyed one of those options for a while. And then she stands up here and talks about how proud she is to have done this craziness. Does that tell you something about her soul? Or Mathan, you know, who stands there and makes nihilistic arguments to me because he knows they're the most controversial kind to make, and it's his commencement night, he might as well make a stink. Does that tell you something about his soul? It's those souls. That's what's interesting for the future. That's what matters. And Socrates says to Thrasymachus, he says, okay, I give you, Thrasymachus' argument was, justice is whatever the stronger person wants. Whoever's got strength, he gets to say what it is. And Socrates said, good, I'll give you that. Now, let's appoint you the strongest man. Tell me what your interest is. Tell me what is good for you. Do you see how the question immediately turns into the fundamental question? The question of the class or the question of the good? Imagine yourself strong and powerful. In Plato's Republic, there's the story of the ring of Gyges. You put this ring, it's like in the Lord of the Rings, you put this ring on and turn it and you can disappear, and that means you can have anything you want. What do you do with that power? Today in the world, we are gathering incredible power over ourselves and over nature. What shall we do with that power in an age where it is thought that strength and success are the only requirement? Thrasymachus could not answer that question because it cannot be answered. Because strength and power, the more you have of it, the more it raises the question, what are you to do with it? What is the good is more sharply presented to those who exercise influence than those who don't. And so the word in Greek is therion. Thrasymachus rose up like a wild beast and shouted at Socrates and left. And then this is my point, my last point. It's my point for you. Plato's brother then rose up and said, okay, Glaucon said to Socrates, and he gives him a command, see. He says, okay, then Socrates. And by the way, I will tell you that it's because I read this passage when I was a junior in college that I am not a lawyer today. I decided to get an education instead. Show me, Socrates, he said, this ambitious young man, ambitious in the biggest possible way, you see. Show me then that justice is good and right even if by practicing it you will win nothing but punishment. Whereas, if you would pick injustice, you could have your rewards. Show me that justice is good for its own sake. Now, Plato's Republic is one of the greatest books ever written. And you know, it's 2,500 years later, and we still read it. And the whole action of Plato's Republic, all of the rest of the Republic, proceeds from that command, from that ambitious young man. And so my point is simple. The reason to have a classical education is to nourish your soul, to elevate your ambitions, and to live virtuously and therefore happily. Congratulations.